Hello, everyone, and welcome to the world's most famous podcast. I'm your hostess, Jacqueline Maddison. Today we have a special guest, Sean Kling, and he is a Gen X business mentor and serial entrepreneur. As the CEO of the Aaraya Group and author of Outwork Them All, he is committed to helping leaders scale their businesses and dominate their industries. So let's welcome Sean to the show. All right, finally we're in the same room together. How are you?
I am doing amazing. How about you?
Good. The same, actually. Life is good. So let's not waste any time. I want to dive right in and get to know all about you. Okay. Why don't you tell us your origin story behind your journey into entrepreneurship and getting into insurance and mentorship, etc.?
Okay. I mean, I am the atypical Gen Xer. That's what my big thing is being a Gen Xer, and I'm not a millennial. I'm not a boomer. I grew up in that time in the 80s and 90s and born in the 70s. My father was a Marine, Vietnam vet. My mom was a nurse, blue-collar family. With my dad and my uncle started a construction company in Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. Huge, diehard Philadelphia Eagles fans. And I spent a lot of my time doing that. And then after high school, I played football in high school, and I went in the Army.
Wow.
And I did that. And that kind of started my journey. I was very influenced by my father, and my grandfather was in the Second World War, and my uncles and stuff. So we come from a big military family. So I was into that, and then, just kind of did my thing. When I got out of the Army, I worked a series of jobs in construction, realized it wasn't for me, and then got married, children, now divorced. But then what really started my journey was this culmination of, I looked at my father. My father had a 9th grade education. He dropped out of school. He went to the Marine Corps, fought in Vietnam. The only beyond education he had in high school was what he learned in the Marines. And my father and my uncle had a very successful construction company. Back in the 90s, they were doing about $20 million a year in sales. And my father was my big influence.
That's huge for the 90s. And you learn so much discipline from serving, in the armed forces. So I can see why you're so accomplished. Forgive me for interrupting. Go on.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I tend to ramble. So, But yeah, so I got this influence from my dad and my uncle, and I was just like, hey, you know what? I can do this too. And I learned a lot from their mistakes. So my first business that I opened was a construction business kind of similar to my father's. And the one thing I learned about construction business is that it's a lot of work, and a lot of times you eat, everybody else eats before you do.
Wow, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
gotta pay the crew, right?
You got to pay the crew, and we did interesting construction. We weren't building houses or anything. We were doing manufacturing construction. So we built conveyor systems in production facilities. Wow. So anything you think about packaging and automated systems, we built that.
Wow, interesting.
So I got out of that, and then I opened a safety consulting business, and that's where things kind of ran on. While doing safety consulting, I went to college at night for a history degree.
Wow.
And
Look at you. So, see, again, this is something you learn from serving, and you get that discipline and that ability to carry a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, I did. I can say this, and even before we go any further, I cannot give myself this credit. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of people, I talk about my parents and my grandparents, but it was more than them. There were a lot of people that got me into the position where I am today, and I owe who I am today to them, not to me. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I wound up when I went to school at night. This is where my company kind of really took off. A guy named Joe came up to me and said, "Hey, they're filming a movie in Philadelphia. Do you want to be in a movie?" I said, "Sure. I'm a history geek." So I went down and I did this independent film on the Underground Railway before the Civil War. And next thing you know, I started getting asked to be in a lot of movies and films, and I became a historical consultant. So I would tell them what uniforms and cars and how the house was decored, and I made a lot of good connections, and I wound up working with Bruce Willis. I wound up working with James McAvoy on a lot of films. And I got out of the safety end of things where I was doing safety and got into insurance. And I've been doing the insurance thing now since 2018. And my company is one of the best kept secrets in the insurance industry. Most people don't even know who we are.
Right. So how did the idea for, is it Aaraya Claims?
Yep, you got it. Aaraya Claims.
What does that mean, and what inspired you to get into insurance and sort of the passion for advocating for the forgotten middle class, if you will?
So Aaraya itself is my niece's middle name.
So pretty.
And she's half Thai. My sister-in-law is from Thailand. She moved to the United States about 20 years ago, became a citizen, and they have a little girl. She's almost 8 now. So we named the business after her. That's where we came up with the name.
I love it. Yeah.
But what got me into the insurance industry is my brother is a very successful attorney. My brother is very intelligent. Don't know where he got a lot of that from because my brother speaks like 7 languages fluently. He's very smart.
That's impressive. Mm-hmm.
And he got into the insurance industry in Florida, which you know is hit by hurricanes, sinkholes, things of that nature. And my brother called me up in 2018. He said, "Hey, Sean, how are things going in Pennsylvania? I just been through a nasty divorce. You know, the world was not in a good place." He said, "Why don't you come down here and get into insurance?"
Let me just break right here. Justin is trying to enter the room, but is he your assistant? Because if it's just for viewing purposes, I would prefer it's just you and I because the interview is with you. Unless he is your partner and he's...
Oh, no. He was trying to get in because of the technical difficulties. He was trying to help us out. He's my IT guy.
Great. So I'm not going to let him in. Let's break and cut back to the interview.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I should have messaged him. So
now you ventured into insurance.
So now I ventured into insurance, and Hurricane Michael in 2018 was my baptism by fire. It was a Category 5 hurricane.
Wow.
Hit the panhandle of Florida, total devastation, and I've been in it ever since.
So for listeners that are unfamiliar, what is a public adjuster, and is that what you do, or is that just one part of what you do in the insurance business?
I do a lot of things. I'm definitely my father's child. I don't wear one hat. But a public adjuster is the best kept secret in the insurance industry. So when you file a claim on your home, an insurance claim on your home or your business, or let's say your boat, you can use public adjuster in auto too, but a lot of people don't do auto claims unless it's like a Lamborghini, something high priced. You file a claim, and you generally have to take what the insurance company gives you. Okay, so they say, hey, this is $100,000 to repair your home, and most people say, okay, that's what the insurance company is giving us.
Right.
Well, 46 of the 50 states have a thing called public insurance adjusters, where you can hire us as a property owner. You don't pay me. It's no charge to you.
Wow.
And I go out and I estimate and I advocate on your behalf because most people are ignorant on how insurance works. They just don't know.
Do tell. Educate me. Educate us all. This is great.
So I come out and I advocate on your behalf, and I'll just give you a couple examples. I did a claim. One of my first claims, an insurance claim, was a little old lady. Her husband had just died. Her brother-in-law was out in the front yard ripping a tree out with a chain in the back of his pickup truck. A tree had fallen into their house after a storm.
Yeah.
The insurance company gave her $125. $125.
Oh, my goodness.
6 months later, I had her $150,000.
Wow, you're amazing. I mean, that's more like it. Because, you're usually people are just at the mercy of the insurance companies, and they tend to be pretty miserly. You know, they're looking usually out for their best interest, it seems, you know. So that's incredible. Tell me more cases, please, more examples.
Well, so I've done so many things. I did a paraplegic, like a guy that was he was in a bad auto accident, and he actually couldn't get around in a regular car. So they took this, I guess you would call it a Winnebago. It wasn't a Winnebago, but a Winnebago-style thing. and they've converted it into a transportation vehicle for his brother to drive him around. And somebody hit this Winnebago, and it messed the slide out, and this guy couldn't get around. So we went and we got this call. We went over to the auto shop and took a look at this thing, and it was a $500,000 Winnebago. So it was worth a lot of money with all the bells and whistles and the handicap accessible stuff. Right. So we went over and we sat down with this guy and explained everything we did. And the insurance company didn't want to give him anything but scrap value for this Winnebago. And this is this guy's way of getting around. It's not like, you know, he can walk out the front door and jump in a car.
Yeah, it's like a custom handicap vehicle. You know, you
Right.
can't go buy it at your local dealership. So I get it.
Right. So we wound up getting him close to $250,000 after they denied it.
Whoa! Talk about a, you know, flip of the script. So how does it work? Like, somebody is in a situation where they are filing a claim or eligible for a claim, that should they call you first and you get involved, you deal with their insurance company? Walk us through the process of working with you and getting you involved in their situation.
Well, we can pick up an insurance claim at any point. You can call us initially and say, hey, Sean, I have this going on at my business. There was a fire at my kitchen at my restaurant. I'll come over and handle it. A lot of times business owners will do that because they don't have the time. They're trying to keep the lights on, keep everything going, and keep operations going.
Right.
You can call me after you file an insurance claim and you're not happy with the result that you got. You can call us after an insurance claim settles if you think you need more money. There's many different things, and it depends upon the state. I'm not just licensed in Florida. I'm licensed in 17 different states. And I actually was just in Pacific Palisades last month with the major fires that were going in there in Altadena, and I was helping out people there.
Great. So you are licensed in California.
Yes.
So that's one of the 17 states. Fantastic.
Yes.
So you talk about being in the ring with the insurance companies, obviously alluding to some sort of fight, right? So how is the process for you dealing with it to get to such tremendous victories for your clients? Do these processes take months, weeks, years?
I've settled insurance claims as fast as 3 weeks. I have some that are 5 and 6 years old.
Wow.
It really depends upon it, what's going on, the complications of the case, and the type of insurance company you have. And it's a very nerve-wracking situation, because what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a company that doesn't want to pay somebody that they owe money to. You're dealing with a property owner or a business owner that's stuck in a situation where they don't have a place to live or they can't make money with their business. So they're calling you this way, insurance company's calling you this way, and everybody's taking it out on you, and you're not even getting paid. Like, I'm not getting paid. So some of these cases, 5 years is a long time to go without getting paid. But we're set up that way so we advocate for the property owner because we get a percentage of the settlement. Right. So kind of like an attorney does, but we get less of a percentage. So an attorney could take like 20, 30% of a settlement. In some states, we're capped at 5%, 10%. California, there's really not a cap in California, but honestly, with what's going on with, I could go on for an hour what's going on in California. You guys, California, are getting the shaft. But in California, you can't really take a large percent because the houses are so expensive that if you take a really large percent, a person can't rebuild their home. So you have to be cognizant of what your fees are so the person can be made whole again. So you got to work with the property owner. And sometimes I've done claims for free. I've helped people out for free and not made a cent.
Well, that's beautiful. I mean, you know, we've always got to have room for our charitable efforts, right? But yeah, I mean, God help us in California. We've had very stringent governmental policies to deal with. So, you know, hopefully those improve and it's more for the people moving forward. So now, how should a homeowner or policyholder, or what should they know before a disaster strikes? Is there something they should have in place, or any insider secret there?
Well, there's so many things you can do. First of all, you have to weigh your options. If you have a home that's paid off, that's mortgage free. You don't have to have homeowners insurance. I would behoove you and say that you should, but you don't have to. The only time you have to have homeowners insurance is if you have a mortgage, because FDIC makes sure that when they're giving you the loan through the bank, you have insured in case something happens at a home.
Yeah, so it's really for the bank to protect their collateral until you pay it off, right?
Right.
Okay.
So you can pay that. You can pay it that way. But that's one of the big things. The other thing is make sure that you read your policy and get in good with whoever you buy your policy from. A lot of these agents will sell policies and hope that you don't look at them. And you never have to file a claim because they collect residual income, a percentage of that policy every year. That's how they make their money.
Oh.
So you'll go to them and say, can you lower my fees that I don't have to pay so much a year? Yeah, sure, I'll sell you that policy because there's less coverage in that policy. Now, if you're more affluent, you're living in Beverly Hills, or you're living in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or someplace that's, Bozeman, Montana, that you got a lot of money, your insurance is a lot different than somebody that says maybe lives in Altadena. It's a different type. So like in Beverly Hills, a lot of people probably have Chubb, which is a phenomenal. If you can get Chubb, you won't ever need my services. Chubb is probably one of the best insurance companies out there in the world. But if you're in a lower income area, or you don't live in a multi-million dollar home, which is hard in California, you don't get those type of insurances. You get something a little bit cheaper. So you have to be aware of what your policy is. And then the next thing is really review your policy. And if you don't know how to read your policy, get a hold of somebody like me. We don't charge to read your policy. Oh. And if you have a business, that's even better, because I can come in, look at your policy, do an inspection, an annual inspection, give you that paperwork, so if an insurance claim does happen, you call me up. I've got all your files. I help you with it. Bada boom, bada bing. It settles the case real quick.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think you're my new best friend.
Thank you.
And probably everyone else's too. But that's awesome. Now, so how can someone know when they need a public adjuster, not just a lawyer or a contractor or somebody else? How do they know they need you?
So in states that there are public adjusters, I have to be clear about this, because there's 4 states that do not have them. Okay, Alabama's one, Arkansas. So there's Wyoming doesn't have public adjusters, and Alaska doesn't have public adjusters. Okay. So in states that do have public adjusters, one thing you have to be clear about is that there are only 3 people that are allowed to negotiate an insurance claim. A contractor is not allowed to negotiate an insurance claim. That's actually a felony.
Ooh,
you have to have a license for that.
Okay.
Contractors will tell you they can do it, but they're not allowed. They're not allowed.
Good to know.
You as the homeowner or the property owner, because you have the contract, so you can negotiate. You're perfectly allowed to do that. An attorney, obviously, and a public adjuster. So you have to weigh your options. So when I went to Pacific Palisades and helped out some people there, a lot of the people in Pacific Palisades had attorneys that they dealt with. And when you're dealing with multi-million dollar homes, I mean, some of these homes were 20, 30, 40, 50 million that we were seeing. Yeah. A public adjuster is good, but sometimes that leverage of an attorney, they're going to take more of a percentage, but you're going to get more money. A public adjuster is good in circumstances, and I'm shooting myself in the foot. Hey, you got a $50 million insurance claim? Give me a call. but a public adjuster can generally handle commercial claims, boat claims, smaller residential. Once you start getting up around that $30, $40, $50 million home, you really want an attorney. Well,
and there's pros and cons, however. Yes, an attorney is beneficial, but there may be higher upfront costs, and so there's things to consider in making your final decision and who you want to represent your claim.
Right, and attorneys in our industry, if you get, I'll give a pro tip to all the listeners and the readers and stuff out there. If you're interviewing an attorney, because my brother's a first-party property attorney, so I know this firsthand. Hire them on a contingency. Right. Any attorney that wants money up front for what we do, you probably want to rethink that. And the reason being is there's no guarantee they're going to get you any money. So you want to have somebody that's invested in the claim with you. And if they're not getting paid, they're invested in making that settlement. If you're getting that money up front, there's a good chance that it's not as – I'm not going to say they're not as important, but the likelihood of you getting somebody as invested is less.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, I've witnessed and experienced things like that dealing with attorneys on contingency or on, you know, the hourly. And it makes a big difference. You're right. They're more invested in getting a better outcome when that's on contingency because they have a percentage.
Yep.
So, yeah, but that's the other thing. Not every attorney is willing to work on contingency. So a public adjuster, or you specifically, might be the go-to in that case.
Right. Right.
So now let's shift gears and talk, you know, about some general, you know, entrepreneurial ideas. What were some early lessons or even recent lessons just in general that you've learned as a business owner and an entrepreneur kind of starting your own thing?
So I wrote a book, and a lot of this is in my book. It's called Outwork Them All, A Gen X Perspective. And a lot of those are in my book. But when I'm looking at businesses and things I've learned, number one thing I learned, not everybody should be in business for themselves. Not everybody needs to be a business owner. Sometimes you're good at a skill or a craft or a design, but maybe you're not good at the back end stuff like accounting and soliciting and business development. So some people should try to stay in their lane. I'm not trying to tell people not to go into business for themselves, but really think about it because it's not all the glitz and glamour people make it out to be.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. There's bumps and bruises and, you know, the unforeseen that you really have to be able to pivot and be resilient for and have perseverance, unbelievable perseverance to succeed.
And network. That's another thing I would say. You can tell just by even the way we're talking here. I'm a spoken guy, man. Like I can chew anybody's ear off.
Yeah, you got away with words. That's good. And a lot of people in business tend to because, you know, you deal with people in negotiation, sales, etc.
It's all a matter on who you surround yourself with. When I lived in Pennsylvania, I lived in a small town outside of Philadelphia. And it's not to knock the people that I grew up with because I'm no better than they are. I put my pants on the same way they do.
Amen.
But they lived in a small area where when you graduated high school, you bellied up to the bar and you told high school stories, and there was no future. Mm-hmm. So I had to surround myself with people that were successful and the people that I wanted to be with. And if you want to be a business owner, look at the person you're taking advice from and see how their situation is. And if you want to be a little bit like them, it's great. I'll give you an example. One of my really, really, really good friends, I love her to death with all my heart. Her mother had actually just died a couple of weeks ago. Her grandfather owned the Philadelphia Eagles, and she lived in California, and she wanted to be a children's book author. And I saw the things that her family did. Her grandfather started the Ronald McDonald House, and she goes around and she reads books. Now, while she's not successful in the business world, she's successful as a human being. Right. And she takes care of children that are sick, and she authors books, and she gives her time to these organizations. And I became very close friends with her, not to learn the business aspect of things, but to learn humanity. And she taught me humanity. Right. And that's the type of people I want to be around to learn things. So networking.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another thought that, you know, don't ever take life advice or business advice from someone whose shoes you wouldn't want to be in, you know. So you've got to be weary of the people who are not ambitious and motivated to go where you want to go, because they can be the naysayers. They can really hold you back. And sometimes, like an eagle flies solo, you might have to isolate yourself for a season in order to, you know, get your business going and kind of get some momentum going in your career. It's just required.
I mean, and this is not to sound arrogant or nothing, but I don't really talk to a lot of the people that I grew up with. Right. Not to say that I'm any better than them,
no,
but I stay in touch with a few people. My one friend is a 30-year military veteran. He's done multiple tours, Iraq, Afghanistan. He's retiring next year. And he was one of them guys that the second we graduated high school, he jumped in the military, went in the Marine Corps, then went in the Army. and I stay in touch with him. He's probably one of the few people I stay in touch with, but he had ambition. The military was his life. He wanted to serve a higher purpose and serve people and protect his country, and I have a lot of admiration for him.
Well, I think that people come into our lives for a reason, a season, a blessing, or a lesson. And I, too, as I've progressed in my career, have had lifelong friends, I thought, sort of, drift away. And I think that just naturally happens when you grow and you are kind of evolving on your own journey. But it doesn't mean you can't love them from afar or wish them well, but it's just sometimes their part in your story is over. And so we have to love and let go and just keep moving forward to continue to grow into the full potential of ourselves, and ultimately making our dreams come true. I mean, isn't that what we all want?
Yeah. Exactly.
So what are 3 core principles that you believe Gen X entrepreneurs need to thrive today? 3, 2, 1, whatever it is for you.
I would the three core principles is, one is resilience. We've lived through a time where we saw the world change. We were kids during the Cold War. We've saw economic booms. We've saw downturns. We've seen wars. We've seen a global pandemic. Being perseverance, you know what I mean.
Resilience, 100%. I mean, we've seen unprecedented global economic circumstances, and myself as a business owner have to pivot, adjust, etc. And then you said the next one is perseverance.
Perseverance. You have to persevere. You have to want to be the thing that you want to fight for. You have to willing to put your gut into things. And I would say the last thing that you really, really want to do is adaptability. If one thing Gen X can do is adaptability, and this is in my book, that when we started our working career, and especially older Gen X, we were working with people that were in World War II that aren't even alive anymore. And we're going to still be working with people that aren't even born yet. And we crossed that threshold of the 20th century where technology was, we learned on abacuses in elementary school. And now we're doing high-speed internet, and I'm on a Zoom call with you across the country. So adaptability is one thing that allowed Gen X to grow and be a leader. And Gen X now, as they're in their 40s, 50s, some of them are going to be in their early 60s this year, we're now in a leadership role. And we had to do that adaptability to become more of a leadership. And you're going to see it in politics and in business. There's a lot of Gen Xers coming to the light. That's adaptability is one thing we're known for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in 1983, and am I a Gen Xer?
What year? 83?
1983.
Oh, you're a millennial.
I just missed it. I'm not part of the cool club.
Well, so my brother, it's a funny story. My brother's born in January of 81, and the cutoff for Gen X is December of 1980. Oh. So he's only a millennial by 3 weeks, and I always call him a millennial. He gets so mad.
That's so funny. He didn't make the cut, huh? That's hilarious.
But millennials are starting to come into their own too. It's Gen X when we were younger, teenagers, early 20s, we were slackers. That's what we were called. And then the millennials started to come into play, and they started saying, "Oh, millennials are slackers." But now you're seeing millennials at 30s or 40s, and there's a lot of good leaders with millennials too. Sometimes through time and attrition, everybody has to pay their dues. Right. And that new generation always gets beat up.
Well, and like you said, not everybody's meant to be in business for themselves. Like, I think, God's given us all unique gifts and talents. And for example, somebody's got to be the garbage man. Not that there's anything wrong with that or that they're lesser than or greater than. But it's just, there's so many different roles and careers and jobs and opportunities that we all have to fill. And so we got to do it with all our heart, whatever it is that we're doing. But some of us are just, cut differently, and we have to, and we ultimately do start our own businesses because those are niches or businesses or services that are needed. And
I would say get into the trades. One of the best things that I ever did when I got out of the service was I went and I worked for my father's construction company, and I learned to work with my hands. And in today's world, everybody gets a lot of degrees, useless degrees. They can't get jobs. And if you can learn to work with your hands, that's something nobody can ever take away. I know how to change a car tire. I can change the filter in my air conditioner at home. I don't have to pay somebody to do that. And you can always make money fixing things. And in today's world, with a shortage of blue-collar workers, You know, you're going to make money. Mike Rowe, who, you know, everybody knows Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs, one of my personal heroes, the way that he pushes blue collar stuff. I mean, I would love to sit down with Mike Rowe and just chew the cud with that guy for 4 hours because he's so smart and he's pushing the right thing.
Yeah, he's a real, you know, roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty. And I think that is such excellent advice because it's so true. Because hey, we don't know if one day the plug gets pulled and there's no internet. You know, then what? Then it's back to, you know, tilling the ground and using your hands like you said. So that's important for especially for men as providers, leaders in the home, etc. I love that. Now, for you, you know, success, everybody's idea of success and pursuit of success is maybe the same or different, but what is your definition of success for you?
You know, as I get older, when I was younger, it was all about money. And I've done okay in my career. Okay, I'm not the richest man in the world. I'm not the poorest man in the world. But it's
sometimes just enough is just enough, you know.
Just enough. More.
Exactly.
What's that song? More money, more problems. You know?
Yeah, right. It's true too.
I would say that for me, it would definitely to be pass on. It's a pass on my knowledge to people. That would be my ultimate form of success and my goal, that I could leave a mark, and if I can change somebody's life and make them just a little bit more better in what they want. You know, a lot of people, you know, at my age, you know, we're fathers, or some of us are becoming grandfathers, and a lot of people don't have a father. A lot of people don't have a grandfather. And if you can fill that void to show a young man or a young woman the way, I think that would be my best legacy.
I love that. And it's so true. Like a big brother, big sister, or mentor. Just always be willing to reach your hand down and lift others up, you know. It's beautiful. For me, I'm of the mind, you know, I'm a Christian, so my kind of spiritual ideology is to kind of be, my idea of success is to become who God created me to be, to use my gifts and talents to their fullness to reach my potential and fulfill my God-given destiny and purpose, right? So for me, I'm always like praying, God, just lead me into my destiny, lead me into my purpose, you know. And as Mark Wahlberg always says, stay prayed up. So for me, that's just imperative to fulfill that definition of success for me.
I come from a Catholic family, I know. I'm not Catholic, but the rest of my family was. So.
So what advice would you give for younger generations when it comes to work ethic? I'm going to give you the ones that my father taught me. If somebody's paying for your time, don't put your hands in your pockets. Wow. That would drive my dad nuts, and I agree with that. Somebody's paying for you, no. Get to work. Do the job. That's
Even if it's sweeping the floor, you're accomplishing something.
That's right.
Another thing I would say for people is be cognizant of your surroundings. If something's not a fit, don't give up your dream for a paycheck.
Right.
Okay, because there's lots of opportunities out there, but the older you get, the less opportunities you have. Okay,
right.
As you start to have a family, you take less risks. And the other thing is live.
Yes.
Live. I watched when I worked for my father. I seen people that would work 80 hours a week, and then when they retired, they were gone in 5 years.
Wow.
Live your life. Go out and travel. I you know, up until a few years ago, I never traveled. I was in Europe the first time last year, and I didn't realize what I was missing my whole life.
Well, they say, you know, travel is the one thing you can buy that makes you richer. But, you know, I'm also of the mind, like, I'm going to be working and producing and being creative and contributing to my last day on earth. Like, for me, I don't really believe in that retirement, like, oh, I'm done, now I'm just going to, like, shrivel up and give up, you know. I'm like, no, every day is a gift. That's why it's called the present. So we got to, you know, embrace it and live life to the fullest even till our last day.
Yeah. Yep, I totally agree. You just got to go out there and do it. You know, I have a travel channel on YouTube.
Oh.
It's called The Kling Connection, my last name.
Cool.
And we have almost 53,000 subscribers.
Nice.
And we travel across the world and do interesting videos. We just drove to California for the wildfires, so we stopped and did about maybe 20 videos. And I'll tell you what, doing the Kling Connection YouTube channel has really opened my eyes up to what's out there. I've met so many interesting people that I would never have met
I
it's
know.
really cool.
Travel is the best. Like me, I work hard. I'm a workhorse, okay? I love it. But I take the time to go on vacation, rest, relax, enjoy the world around me, have those experiences that open our heart and mind and help us grow as human beings, you know, so that when we get back to business, we've got more to give. No, not just to the work, but to the people that we're serving. So it's imperative. Now, we've covered a lot of ground, but I want to know how can people reach Aaraya? Like, where do they find it? Are you on Instagram? What's the website? And your book, where can they get it, etc.? Do tell, all the details.
So you can find me, you can contact me through my book. I offer some coaching. And I offer speaking and stuff. I don't go to work for companies, but I'll meet with owners. I'll give them ideas and coaching, and I'll do some speaking. You can go to SeanKling.com. That's my website. And you can go there and book a time with me, and we can talk about things. You can get my book there. I'm in Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, Walmart, all that stuff. And then for Aaraya, it's AarayaClaims.com. And you
so
go there.
That's A-R, go ahead, spell it.
AARAYA claims.com.
Well, you got it. Well, of course, we'll link everything in the caption, and then in your business leader feature in the magazine, obviously, readers can check it out and get in touch with you that way as well. Now, what's next for you as we wrap this up, professionally or personally, that you're excited about and we can look forward to from you?
Well, professionally, I'm going to be still doing some more traveling for the Kling Connection and still doing insurance stuff. I'm going to be be more selective on who I work with insurance as I get more involved with that later on. But we're actually going to be putting together a history channel because I'm a history geek. So we'll be doing a show and a podcast and a video series on various things about American history, teaching young kids really what American history is about, and not what we've been told today what it is, but what it really is.
Yeah.
Personally, just going to be traveling more, spending more time with my family, with my kids, and be that old crotchety old man shakes hand at cloud type of guy until they put me in a wooden overcoat.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's been such an honor to spend some time with you. I think we got so much enlightenment from our conversation today with all the information you shared. Thank you, and I wish you obviously continued and endless success. And is there any final note that you'd like to end on before we wrap it up?
I just want to tell everybody, live your life to its fullest, because you don't know when that clock strikes 12 and your day is over.
Right. Amen. That's right. Today is a gift, as I said. That's why it's called the present. Let's live it to the fullest and embrace it and appreciate it. And I appreciate you, Sean. God bless you. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll have you on in the future to catch up with you, and I wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
Thank you very much for having me.
The pleasure. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye.